And I think that once we start to see them as essential to our spiritual path, to our spiritual life, there is going to be a lot of change that happens.
Okay, and my two follow-up questions, and I'll ask them both together, is why the move to alternative healing, and what is it that drew you to shamanism?
Alternative healing, I was very fortunate growing up to be with a group of wise women. My mom was studying meditation and light work and energy healing when I was very young, and she occasionally took me to the meetings with her, with the women in the group that she was studying with. So I was familiar with crystals and spirit animals and light work and chakras and all of that from a very early age. So I always was, getting acupuncture treatments and being around that my whole growing up. But I came to a point where, especially after being on the island, I realized that there was some wounds within me that needed seeing to. And I knew that conventional doctor or even a psychotherapist wasn't going to get me where I needed to go. And so that's why I was always open to and exploring alternative healing. And when I discovered shamanism, very much by chance, and my first encounter with it, it was clear to me that that's what I needed to be doing. And I really explored it first as a personal healing, as from the perspective of the wounded healer, and then came to a point where I realized, okay, I am certain now that I'm here to be of service and to help other people by doing healing work for them.
Thank you for that. We have a question from Jess in our chat room. And in terms of animal communication, she wants to know, have any animals ever given you a form of warning about something?
No. I would say, well, I'm not something covert, so I don't feel like I've been warned that a car accident might happen or that I should do this rather than that because I might be in danger or someone I love might be in danger. But I feel like I have gotten some wake-up calls. Last year, it was in the summer, and I was doing, going and giving lots of talks and presentations around, and I was getting pretty exhausted. Internally, really, in terms of endurance, like, wow, can I really keep this up, and am I making a difference, and should I really keep doing this? And I was nearly to the point of giving up. And then I came home one afternoon, and there was a dead elk. There was a dead elk laying in my horse pasture. And we live surrounded by a lot of wilderness, and our horse pasture is just one small fenced area. So this elk actually had to jump over a fence to die in my pasture where my horses are. And that was the moment where it's like, okay, what's the message here? Anytime I have an animal show up in my life that's either injured or dead, I take that very seriously, and I look at, okay, what is this asking for? And if you look up, very simply, if you look up elk in the medicine cards by Jamie Sams and David Carson, you find that elk means stamina.
Mm.
And so I took that message very seriously and called on the grace of stamina within myself and continued on with what I was doing in honor of that elk that gave its life.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting story. I've had episodes where wild birds have fallen dead at my feet, and it's usually been around the time that I've been going through a healing crisis. Mm-hmm. And I took their falling and their heart stopping to my heart as a message that it was time for me to change something in my life that was going wrong. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's a beautiful share. What time period of your life does the book Gracious Wild cover?
It was my early to mid-20s, so right around or just before my Saturn return. So a lot of your listeners probably know what that means, right? Or do you want me to talk more about Saturn return?
Why don't you tell our non-astrological folks what the Saturn return is?
Yeah.
That would be me.
Here you go.
Okay, I'll help you out. So it happened sometime in the like 25 to 28, depending on your astrological chart. But it's a time in our lives when a big crisis comes. I have a friend, a dear friend, who's I think she's around 27 or 28 that's going through it right now. I think mine came a little early. But it's that point at which, we go along, we go to college, we go get a job, we get things moving along, and we think we know what our lives are going to look like or what we're supposed to be doing. And then we hit, and we may have some doubts here and there, like, well, what am I going to major in? But it's not something that is this life-shaking process. Saturn return is the big transition where it's like, wow, what am I doing here? Like, really, what kind of difference am I making? It's a major type of life crisis, but it's a big Rubicon where we pass through into maturity fully and really have an opportunity to move into our life's work, our vocation. There's a difference between our career, which is what we're focused on, I think, before that point, and then a vocation, which is really our service, what we came here to do, not just what we want to do or what we enjoy doing.
And that's exactly what I experienced in my 30s. That's when I had mine, that the reawakening to the fact that the day job was fine, but there was something more, that I wanted something more, that I also wanted to help people. And that was my big wake-up call in my 30s.
Yeah, and you explain it exactly right, and there's that wanting of something more, like what else is there out there? This can't be it. Yeah. And
in fact, Chris was going through that just this last week. He said, "Is that all there is? Is that all there is, my friend?"
Actually, I was in my early 30s as well when I had that moment. Good, but why are you picking that one?
Well, Stacey, you seem fairly young to have had all these unique and wonderful life experiences. How have you packed all of this in the very short years that you've had on this earth?
Yeah, I do archetype work, and before I started doing that work for other people, I looked at my own archetypes, and one of my big ones is the pioneer. I am always out doing new things, trying new things, and I'm really big into change. I've changed a lot of jobs. When I was working in wildlife biology, every 6 months at least, I was doing having a different job, and that was part of it. As a wildlife biologist, I think it sounds really romantic. When you were explaining it at the beginning of the show, reading my bio, you mentioned, wow, that I'm really jealous. That would be amazing to work in all these different habitats with all these different animals, which it was. But at the same time, I was moving every 6 months. The field jobs only last for a season, really. So it's really strenuous. But yeah, we talk about bucket lists. I had a bucket list early on and was really living my life like I needed to get through that list just in case, or just because I felt so passionate about it. And I feel fortunate. I've had the opportunity to view life as my oyster and be brave enough and also have the support of people around me to explore different things I was interested in.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Stacey, how did you get into handling and training hawks? Could you tell us about the work you did?
Yeah, I was at this wildlife rehabilitation center, and I started out as a volunteer. I volunteered there for probably about 9 months or so, just helping out, taking care of any of the injured animals that came in, cleaning their cages and bringing them food and water. And this center had a handful of hawks, owls, falcon. They had a turkey vulture that were handicapped. These animals had come in with some sort of injury, and it hadn't healed in a way where they could go back out into the wild and survive. So they were there as ambassadors. They were taken to different programs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, schools, and to help raise awareness about birds of prey. And I saw an opportunity. There was a northern harrier hawk. Here's another synchronicity. So I talked about that northern harrier hawk out on the island that would meet me on my walk every morning. At this wildlife rehab center, they had a northern harrier hawk in their ambassador bird program. which they're not common to have in captivity. So she was in need of a handler, and I saw the synchronicity and saw that same face that I had seen every morning, right? Not the exact same bird, but a very strong memory of that species of bird and their faces. And so I started working with Talia. I volunteered, and they were kind enough to let me try to see if I was a good fit for her. And it did. I ended up spending most of my days going out and taking her for walks out on my glove and feeding her, and I could fly her on a tether on a little line. I was able to fly her from a perch to my glove. So I spent a lot of time alone with them. There was very rarely, actually, maybe at the most once a month that they went to programs. So most of the time I was with them. I was alone. I worked with both Talia, the northern harrier hawk, and then Gracia. She was a red-tailed hawk that came in as a young bird, and I actually had the benefit of training her for the first time. I was the first human that she learned to work with and learned to trust, which was a really frightening and worrisome process at the start, but very rewarding when she came around and started to trust me.
You know, I've always been amazed when I drive down mountain highways and I see hawks circling above, and I pull over, and it's like a beautiful ballet in the air as they circle around. And I know they're being predatory and they're looking for prey and they're looking for food, but to see them do that and to see the way their wings contour to the updrafts and keep them aloft and the way they soar, I think it's just absolutely spectacularly beautiful.
Yeah, they are really, really stunning.
Okay, I guess this is our last question before break, Vic.
Yes, go ahead.
Why do you think so many people are attracted to hawks?
Well, they're beautiful, right? Just hearing about how absolutely stunning and amazing they are. Yeah. They are able to transcend our world. We really do, and always have had as a species. We're very fascinated with birds because they can lift off and leave at any given time, which is very emblematic of freedom. But they also hawks have this regal, aloof almost nature about them. They're very self-confident and self-assured, which I think is very attractive to us because we see qualities in them we wish for in ourselves. And then on top of it, they've got that incredible vision where they can take in an entire landscape but also focus in on the smallest detail on the ground. And that speaks to us that, we sometimes can get lost in everything that's going on around us and create our own confusion or disorientation, and to be associated or come into contact with an animal that has so much focus and clarity in their both actual vision and also metaphoric vision is, I think, a very powerful thing that draws a lot of people close by.
Let's close the hour with one question. Bana in our chat room, our friend Bana, asked, what do hawks symbolize?
Just what I was talking about, first of all, would be vision. And if you look at different species of hawks, I always like to look at the species level. You'll get different messages. So red-tailed hawks, I have a whole post on my blog about red-tailed hawks. And red-tailed hawks really are symbolic of the tribe. You think about their red tail, that is the root chakra, right? And what is root chakra but tribe and survival? So a lot of our situations around dealing with humiliation and also coming into trusting and being a part of our tribe is very important in looking at red-tailed hawks. And we have difference with maybe a Cooper's hawk. They live in the forest and are very secretive birds. Red tails are very conspicuous and out there and in the tribe and available. The Cooper's hawks are very much more secretive, and in the woods they stay hidden and swoop in through the branches to get to birds, small songbirds that they hunt down. So two very different messages depending on the species of hawk.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And our guest in this first hour of the Paranormal Lounge, Stacy L.L. Couch, author of the book Gracious Wild, A Shamanic Journey with Hawks. And Stacy, please tell our listeners again where they can get the book and find out more about you.
So we talked about local booksellers. I'm a big fan as well. You can